Hello and welcome back to Downloadable Content. Blade and Sorcery just dropped some exciting news about the road to 1.0, and I'm going to help you break it down right now. Baron starts things off by saying this can be bittersweet news. In theory, this will likely be the last Road 2 major update for news for Blade and Sorcery, as the next stop will be 1.0, which is full release. If you guys didn't know, the game has been in early access for almost 5 years. So finally, we get to take a sneak peek at what's coming for 1.0, which will be Crystal Hunt, also known as Progression Mode. Something that would come up again and again from players was they wish that there was a quote-unquote point to the dungeons, that the player would have something that they're working towards, a sense of progression and completion of the game. In the past, this was beyond the scope of feasibility, but since 2018, Warfrog has expanded the team to only almost 21 full-time and 6 part-time staff, so they're able of crafting this whole game mode. And they give us a screenshot of, looks like one of the new cave systems, a new dungeon. That looks awesome. They let you know that the original game was supposed to be just a pure simulation sandbox with good mechanics, and you could just kind of do what you want. But they realized that a lot of players want something more. So they were able to retool the brains for the task to create a Crystal Hunt game mode that has progression. They're letting us know that it's not too quote-unquote gamey. It has a story, but not a full-blown RPG or railroad experience. So what Crystal Hunt is composed of exactly is basically 3 components: a story / player motive, a new dungeon biome, and a new game mode. So here's the story. The Dalgarians, an obscure and ancient race of people from millennia ago. Supposed masters of magic, little is actually known of them beyond folktale and hearsay. And ancient history became myth and the legend through the, let's say, annals of time. All right, I'm not going to read any further in the story. Just know that there is a story there. There's a backstory. There's a lot of words in here, but I'll leave you guys to that one. Let's just look at some of the breakdown of these pictures. They look fantastic. Look at the lighting. It looks like a totally new dungeon biome, which was promised, and that's what I'm excited, because, you know, I've seen every dungeon tile set at this point, and this is beyond epic. And so began the great Crystal Hunt. Look at this pit right here. I can't tell if that's like dirt or bloodstains or something, but that looks pretty devious. Some more lore stuff. So within weeks, powerful factions began mobilizing their forces in an attempt to seek out and secure the entrances to these Dalgarian chambers and the treasures within, occupying crumbling outposts of the old world as forward operating bases while they comb and through the access of the landscape, which is awesome. So it sounds like that the ancient zone that we're going to be like exploring over here has like the normal people in it. So that's why we're going to find like normal soldiers and not the Dalgarians. And that's pretty cool. Let's continue. Due to the corrupting effects of magic on humankind, unsanctioned magic is... Whoa. Is this a nod to downloadable content lore? Let's read that again. Due to the corrupting effects of magic on humankind, unsanctioned magic in Eredon is illegal. I told you guys magic was illegal for what, years at this point? Confirmed. Magic is illegal. And they called me a madman. I don't know if that's a direct nod to me, but that would be cool. I'm just saying. Anyway, I digress. Enter the player. Just one of many swept up into the Crystal Hunt adventure. But unlike others, they have been tasked with a very special quest given by the obscure Dalgarian Archaeological Society. Seeking more than just magical powers of the crystals above, the society are dubious and assembling a bigger picture of recent events. They seek answers, the timing of the Dalgarian chambers revealing themselves, the crystals, and the most burning question of all in Baiath. So they have an about the lore section and says, if you follow any Warfrog social medias, you may have seen me, the Baron, mention how I'm always apprehensive of using the word storyline in the game, even though it actually is a storyline. And the reason why Baron is so trepid about the word story is because they never want to actually imply that there will be like an RPG with in-game characters and dialogue choices, don't think Mass Effect or Skyrim, think more like Dark Souls if it had no NPCs, where the world tells a story. Like you find a book and written on the book says like someone tripped down the well or something. More lore rich inside the world. And they want to make sure that they're not spoon feeding players and hit them over the head like, do you get the story? Are you getting it now? In summation of that, they say they've always rejected this approach in lieu of giving players the more benefit of the doubt that they are capable and motivated to explore the game in its own boundaries. And the Warfrog vibe is that you like this in a video game and you think it's cool. And if you don't like it, that's okay. So without any kind of hand-holding narrator to act as a guide, the first way a player might explore the world is through environmental storytelling. And then they gave us like an epic picture right here. It looks like they changed that one statue in, I call it like the worship room. Used to be an old bald guy holding his hand out. Now it's like some crazy looking king with a sword facing down with like the wax melting. This is awesome. It's really cool. I love how the statue looks, and looking like right behind it, some broken glass and everything. Because this is Blade and Sorcery, I have to ask this question. So this is broken glass. Can I reach my arm through there and touch the back of it? I just need to know. It's VR, so I wonder if there's a backside to this. They continue and said, similarly for the Warfrog team, the use of environmental storytelling in exploration of the Dalgarian ruins will be based upon your inferral of your environments. No one will come along and tell you that you are right or wrong, but something that they are really secretly hoping and looking forward to is there will be times when the community will pool together their theories and discoveries about the world. That's where we come in. You know, we'll be like, oh my God, did you find that book that said that Ricky lost his nose in the Great War? Like, we're going to do that stuff. The second way a player can absorb lore in a much more direct via written text or images, a written note that the player finds in one of the Crystal Hunt factions, or it can even be some ancient text found in the Dalgarian ruin themselves. They say that maybe you understand us enough by now to know, even that it is not something we would make too straightforward. And they put a little devil face. You're going to find the ancient text, which is this one right here. And you can, if you transcribe this right here, this will tell you when Nomad scripting and multiplayer mod support will come to the game. Yeah, they're not joking. It says, break out your cipher. And they have a picture of what is that, Cosby? Come on. Someone has to do that. Anyway, they're saying if you're the kind of player who just wants to casually fight your way through the game, but would enjoy some kind of motivation to get you through into the ending, then you can absolutely positively still play Crystal Hunt in this way. You don't have to look for all these clues. Like, you can still enjoy that. As for the dungeon themselves, they kind of break it down here. So let's talk about the actual Dalgarian dungeons. If you have played Outposts, then you probably have a good idea of what to expect. They're letting us know that's an entirely new dungeon biome and set of rooms, and everything has been hand designed from the ground up to tailor to our story. Specifically, you know, the Dalgarian one has been made for that. So this has been a huge project undertaking for the environmental team at Warfrog, as they are tasked to build out an entirely new dungeon on the same scope like the Outpost. But unlike the Outpost, which is very medieval inspired in design, the Dalgarian dungeon required a full-blown novel art direction to create something entirely new, ancient, and mystical feeling. And look at some of these pictures. I mean, I want to explore that. I think already they've done a great job of making something cave-like that doesn't look like it was a direct rip from Skyrim, and that is very impressive. Now let's talk about the dungeon room pool size. It's going to be akin to the Outpost room, but currently there's about 40 rooms compared to the Outpost 60. However, these rooms compared to Outpost are going to be massive, or at least more massive than the normal. So although the standard Outpost may have more quote-unquote rooms in their tile set, the Dalgarians are going to be more interesting and more massive. They're also letting us know what's missing from these preview images is a VR player or any person that you can, you know, do a banana for scale type of thing. So when you make your first visit in VR here, you're going to see it for yourself. And that's what I'm excited for. I want to be like, whoa. And then they double down on, you will have to be able to see these rooms in VR to really appreciate the job. And I don't doubt it. I mean, these environments, even from these screenshots, look fantastic. And I can't wait to just poke my head back there and be like, oh, what is that, sunlight? All right, so up next is the Crystal Hunt game mode. So they're referring to this one as the meat and potatoes. When you start the game, you can make a separate character for each game mode. So for the sandbox game mode, everything is still unlocked right from the start. All maps, weapons, armors, all dev cheats, mods, anything you could think of is unlocked. However, this will totally spoil unlocking skills legitimately in Crystal Hunt, but to each their own. Now, they said in the same vein, we have thought a bunch about using mods in the Crystal Hunt and have decided that the best thing to do would be to allow mods. So let's just give them a brief moment of clapping. But they will splash a disclaimer to give you a heads up that you are most likely going to ruin the experience or potentially even bork your save file. Especially in a full release version of this one, Crystal Hunt has been, you know, kind of tailored to a very specific game mode. So using certain mods, you know, to level you up in the appropriate way might ruin it. So I think, like, you know, OP spells that like instantly delete a character and you get the XP or some, however that's going to work. I can get where they're coming from, but don't tell me how to play. I'm just kidding. So for the Crystal Hunt mode, your character starts as a nobody, stripped of everything, no magic, no weapons. And by the time you get to the end of Crystal Hunt, your character, in theory, will have progressed their power to be like the powerful sandbox character and even further beyond. And that might, I hope that's not just like a word they put in there. Because they said they'll be more like the character in the sandbox version, and they have and beyond. So can my Crystal Hunt character be more powerful than my sandbox character? So as you progress through the game mode, you will find loot, which is the currency that you can use to buy things from the shops, which is awesome. And the crystals you will use to unlock new skills, as well as progress through the game and reach the ending. This will be what the whole Crystal Game Hunt is about. The most valuable resource that you can find in the Crystal Hunt mode is the crystals themselves, which come in two varieties, crystal shards and crystal cores. Crystal shards are a smaller, less powerful source of magic. Being more commonly found in nature and less destructive, they are usually used by sanctioned sorcerers of the courts. In game terms, it means that the shards will be used to unlock new skills from the skill tree. Then there's the more sought after crystal cores themselves. These are very rare resources found in the ruins. And in game terms, this is a currency you will use to unlock new skill branches, which can then be used to invest in your shards. So crystal cores can be used as merges to unlock even more powerful tiers. And that's like the fire merge. And that looks really cool. Look at that. Look at those two crystals merging. That's awesome. Now let's talk about the skill tree. The skill tree is the main component of how you progress in Crystal Hunt. Since U10, an age-old question for Blade and Sorcery has been, what is the obelisk thing in the house? Well, some of you guys were stuffing cups and other things into holsters. I would never do that. A few of you guessed it. I can officially reveal that the obelisk is where you unlock all your skills. So crystal cores can be placed in the obelisk slots to unlock the progression. The UI functionality is working, but sadly it's still a work in progress, you know, like we thought. And just look at this GIF. Is that blue fire mixed with regular fire? Is that a flamethrower? What's happening? So there are no boring number crunches, except for you growing in magical powers, but that's like a behind the scenes type of thing. And each skill on the tree is either a new feature to unlock or an enhancement / augmentation of a current feature. This basically means you have ways to change the behavior of spells you are familiar with. For example, adding a ability to bounce your fireballs off walls, set enemies on fire, suspend yourself in the air with gravity, or create chain lightning effects between metallic armors. Look at all these skills. Like there's people just floating in the air and being electrified. The sorcery is about to go nuts. So it says, to give you an idea of how crazy we went in the skill tree, if you were to recreate the sandbox player, as you would know, it would account for approximately 20% of the skill tree. The rest is new content. Oh my goodness, that's madness. And although they're showing clips of magic here, there's also a body brand skill tree, which is oriented towards more melee favorite builds. Unfortunately, this is still in development right now, so there's not much to preview for it, but look at this, a sneak peek. You just punched her into a box. There is enough content in the skill tree alone to justify its own news, I bet. So there'll be more at a later date. All right, next up is the loot. A big component of Crystal Hunt is the loot where you're gathering in dungeons. Loot will go directly into your inventory to be later sold to be purchased for new weapons and armor. Fair warning that there's still something under heavy design development right now, so some stuff may be subject to change. But the concept is this: find loot, put it in your inventory, and sell it. And loot is going to be everywhere. And I love that. I love interacting with stuff in VR and picking things up. Who doesn't? You have to be a mad person not to love that one. But the fact you can just be like, open up refrigerator, take compass, steal, that's awesome. Let's talk about the shop. So we've probably heard the shop being mentioned a bunch of times throughout the content of Crystal Hunt, but everyone's like, what's the shop? So a few people have thought of by shop, I mean some kind of book or UI to purchase stuff. But nope, not at all. Get wrecked, Derek. Our shop is an actual shop. That's awesome. But with a twist. This is where you can buy things and physically take them from the shelf and then take them to the counter to purchase. However, before I keep reading, is there going to be a merchant? Who is the merchant? And if there's no merchant, why am I buying things? I'm just going to steal it all. Needless to say, it was incredibly difficult to design a VR shop experience while adhering to our stubborn refusal to implement any UIs and other gamey elements. I'm excited to see that. And here's like a little picture of it. Like, so is that me? Is that the player right there? Because if no one's working here, I'm stealing everything. The shop will also be something you can invest your loot money in to upgrade the store and expand the purchase selection. Okay, that's cool. And there are other surprises too. Oh, but they'll leave it for that for now. Thanks. Oh man, up next is new armors. Oh, You're giving me too much to break down here. So the upper tier armors have finally been implemented into the game for both players and enemies. Check out these rogues wearing leather and officers wearing plate. Look at that. Look at this. What? So the officer armor is particularly freaking hard to fight against in its full coverage, minus some small gaps. This means unless you're particularly finesse with the blade, duh, blunt weapons and magic, especially in electricity, are better for dealing with these guys. And look at them. This person looks scared, like you blocked it. Like, you blocked that? So for the player, there are some gameplay mechanics coming with armors as well. A player who opts for less protective wizard build attire can actually reap some benefits from doing so beyond just looking cool. Certain wizard gear and staffs will grant spellcasters boost speed, which means players will have a full-blown spell sling wizard. That's awesome. That is so good. Now there's new weapons. Everyone's been talking about this, and here we go. Not including shields or anything like that. Did you know there are already 38 weapons in the vanilla U12 Blade Sorcery? Finally, coming in 1.0 are the last of the tiered weapons. Not counting new shields or arrows or anything like that, there are 37 new weapons being added. What? Which is a total of 75 weapons to the 1.0 build. There's a huge chance I miscounted, that'd be funny, and the amount of new weapons may be added or removed before release, but that's the ballpark. So we have a ballpark around 75 new weapons. And look at this thing. What is that? These weapons are covering just about everything from swords, axes, polearms to staff and bows, and they're finally different arrow types. Yes, thank you. Tiered weapons is just referring to the weapon's quality, which will range from lower poor quality weapons to the upper fancier tiered ones. However, they're trying to make all weapons functional. So they don't just want to say, oh, just because you found a rusty dagger, you can't destroy someone. Looks like you still can. So they're saying things like low quality weapons equals low damage. And they want to avoid that, which just because it's a lower line thing, it just means they probably will have, less penetration on certain things. Let's say they have hard leather and you have a rusty weapon. It might not penetrate that one because it's so low quality. Also, if you go to imbue it, possibly it might not be able to be imbued just because it's so rusty, but that's what's going to be awesome. Now, it looks like they did the Ruins rework. So if you guys didn't know, Ruins was just a map in standalone, and this is it. This is the rework. It looks almost nothing like the original. It almost looks like this is a tile in the dungeon. It looks awesome. This is good news. This is great news for people just like playing on the sandbox maps. Absolutely amazing. So this was a little secret roadmap item that they had always revamped for this is the Ruins 1.0. It's a complete graphical makeover and layout. The map is deceptively huge. However, it still has the hallmarks of the original Ruins, which is great. And don't worry, yes, there's still a chandelier. Now, there's also factions. A low-key change coming is how the enemies are presented in the game. Traditionally, the game has always classified factions by their attire, like Gladiator, Bandit, and so on. So they have reworked this, so the enemy loadouts are now better representative of the Crystal Hunt factions instead of just their outfits. So look at them. That is really cool. He has like, his little mark on him. That's great. So how this translates to the gameplay is that the enemy difficulty is no longer tied to outfits, which is a great change. Where before, if you wanted to see Armored Knights in the outpost, you always need to play at hard difficulty. So now there's quality of changes and other little things. So very much this is a miscellaneous category. There's a lot of small bits and bobs that were included in the final update. Most of the stuff will leave for the release notes, but we'll give you some examples like dev cheats and things like that. So good thing is they have a notable example for uninstall all button for moving all mods. That's great. So if you're using the in-game mod manager, you have to make sure you uninstall each mod. Otherwise it will come back even if you manually delete it. Up next, they have hip quivers. Thank you. Thank you. So this is going to be the Omega nerd thing, but quivers are never supposed to be worn on the back like that. It's always from the hip. Like, so if they're trying to be historical, it's always from the hip, never on the back. Now, there's other surprises, and of course, we can't resist. They can do the keep your secrets guy. It's not going to tell us the other super secret stuff, but let's talk about the release date. Oh boy, here's the truth. We don't know. Fantastic. There are so many things that have to come and so many things that have not been started, lots of broken things, so on and so forth. And of course, the QA period of testing. So the current estimated ballpark for release is Q1 2024. So Q1 is usually the first 3 months so that's January, February, March. We can expect somewhere in that window. But that doesn't mean that they're positively shooting for that one. So just keep that in mind. So here's a random sampling of a modern morning and things are just randomly happening. So this is like something broke. It looks like the water flooded and then they have like no textures over here. I kind of would love like to play the broken build, to be honest. I'm just saying, just for me, I would love to play it. But also they want to make sure that they're protecting their staff, which is a great thing. They want to avoid the dreaded crunch time in this culture. And To that I say, good for you guys. Don't work your people to death. You know, it's not worth it. So I appreciate that. Anyway, that is pretty much the full breakdown here. I have one more thing to say before I let you guys go. I know obviously you stayed to the end of this video. Why wouldn't you? Throughout reading all of this, almost everything excites me. In fact, there's nothing that doesn't excite me in this. It's all fantastic, fantastic news. However, I did not see any talk about things like animation or AI behavior, and I don't know if that was accidentally left out or if they're not working on it, but this is just my abstract thought. If 1.0 releases and it's the same AI and the same fighting and everything, I think that's going to be an incredible swing and a miss. Putting so much work into something like this and making more levels and weapons and more magic for the player is awesome. I am so grateful for that stuff because I love playing Blade and Sorcery. But you know, if you played Blade and Sorcery anywhere past the 20-hour mark, you start to memorize attack patterns and what the enemies are and, well, aren't capable of. Example, you can easily trip them by just putting their friends in front of them. And because enemies can't use two-handed weapons like swords, polearms, and axes, it's really easy to predict what they are going to do next. So, if Blade and Sorcery does come out in Q1 without some form of AI overhaul, at least add new animation pools or something, I do think that is going to be a giant misstep, unfortunately. However, that's all speculation, and maybe they are completely working on it, and I have to eat my own words. Now, also something not mentioned in here was the Nomad game mode. However, I know they've stated in the past that Nomad is usually supposed to be work in parallel with this one, so I think they're going to be releasing them at the same time. Once again, that's still my speculation, but all the stuff, of course, will come to Nomad. However, we don't know if it's going to be obviously the same, not graphical fidelity. And the final thing I want to say is no mention of the Quest 3. The Quest 3, as the time of me filming this, will be out in about 5, maybe 6 days. So is Nomad going to get a huge boost in performance in their graphics because of the Quest 3? Are we making a special build because of the Quest 3? So what does that look like, especially now that we have it? But anyway, those are my final thoughts, opinions, and this has been the breakdown. This has probably been my longest breakdown of a Blade and Sorcery post since its inception, but I just want to thank you guys for sticking with me and listening to my wonderful voice as I speak to you from beyond, well, your screen. But anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new, subscribe. Even if you aren't, subscribe twice. I'm just kidding, but thank you so much. I'm Drifter from Downloadable Content, and I'll see you all next time.